just a little white. Hear me? Is this loud or is good enough? All right, so I will be talking about LUKSO, my project that I started a while back. And yeah, let's go. So that's a little bit of a ride where I will take you into a bit of a different perspective than what we normally see here in the Ethereum space lately. So let's start with myself. I'm called the Dark Lord of Shitcoins, you know, from Conchasera, because of my contribution to the space with ERC20. But I have also done actually work, you know, which is like the little icons in the middle. So I have built the Mist browser and the Ethereum wallet, and also Web3.js, which probably many of you use. But now I'm titled the Dark Lord of Shitcoins, which is the Darth Vader of the Ethereum tokens. So I will be talking about LUKSO today, and LUKSO is basically a new blockchain that we are starting, a blockchain that is also EVM based like the Ethereum network, but it's dedicated to a different audience and a different set of use cases than what you normally see. So I call it an Ethereum sister network for the digital lifestyle space. And it's a EVM-based network, but uses a different consensus algorithm. It will use initially Honey Badger BFT plus Proof of Stake DAO. And for who is this network, or what is the purpose of the network? The LUKSO network we see is for a different kind of user. So we see here, we walk around in the conference, and lately in the last recent years, it's all about decentralized finance. We see the LUKSO network being more for the 1 billion people we see on Instagram, for example, today, for a different creative audience, or for the audience of gamers and even fashion designers and creative people, but even vloggers and YouTubers and artists. But obviously, first and foremost, also for developers. And this kind of digital lifestyle space, how we coin it, that's a different angle and a different approach to blockchain's applications. And I think in the next few years, we will call that probably the social blockchain applications. So we have, you know, if we take a bit more a philosophical approach, we have a complete new type of players in the world. You know, we have influencers and video loggers, YouTubers, and creative people and gamers, and they all have a complete different influence and reach than in the past. You know, you had like the media and the press. They dictated what people believe and what people see. Today, an influencer can have a bigger reach and a stronger influence on you know, what is going on in the world and what is interesting. So now we have developers actually that define rules. You know, smart contracts DAO, the DAO, code is law, and all of these things we define as creative people content, and then what people find interesting and what is the next things that trigger the masses and trigger movements. So we have completely actually in a way, decentralize the power of information through the internet. And what's missing for that creative community today is actually a trustable infrastructure. The problem is when we all think, okay, that might be Ethereum, and I myself, I come from the Ethereum network, having built one of the early tools and applications, is that I believe, and that's why we are doing LUKSO, that you need a dedicated community and a dedicated network for this new kind of creative crowd. Because as we see here, most of the conference, it's all about tokens now, thanks to standards. But why another blockchain? That's probably the #1 question everybody will ask. And the reason is that currently everybody is focusing on finance. And as much as I love DeFi myself, it's a very hard topic to crack because you basically are competing with banks and established players. It's a very male-driven interest group, right? It's finance, it's investment, and so on. And you're dealing with a very established infrastructure and regulation on the end if you want to make something really, become used in public. And if you think about it, nobody's really focusing on the digital crowd, on the digital social crowd. And if you look on the internet today, who's the most active crowd? Who is really determining the discourse publicly? It is the people on Twitter, it's the people on Instagram, it's the people on social media. And right now there's almost no blockchain applications in that field. And that is what the LUKSO network is actually aiming for those kind of users. And why a separate network is, it's obviously mainly for scalability. So the way of how we are moving this forward is there will be separate networks for scalability reasons, but also for community reasons. It's a complete different set of people, it's a different set of applications, and it's a different set of startups and even participants and users that are happy to actually start their own network from scratch. It has the value growth of a network, which is important for that community to come together and to grow together, but also for standardization. It's extremely crucial that we have a more calm space at first to define the core building blocks that allow us then to kind of grow this network forward. And how I see it, it's kind of like the future. I have talked it actually a few years back. I call that the Internet of Blockchains. And in fact, if we today look into the blockchain space in the landscape, we have a lot of blockchains. We have, in a way, an Internet of Blockchains. Currently, most of those blockchains are not really connected, so it's not really an interconnected Internet of Blockchains. But this is exactly the next step. And why separate networks is because we have separate interest groups. In today's blockchain landscape, everybody tries to dethrone Ethereum, right? In the world before, everybody tried to dethrone Bitcoin. But there is a reason why there should be separate networks, because there are so many different interest groups. And I do believe that the future will be networks forming around those different interest groups. So and I want to take you a little bit a step back to see, so what's coming in the next few years? So if you think about the future, you should always include the wildcard. Because what we normally do in our mind, we think, okay, yeah, the future is just what we have now, just more. We have this kind of linear extrapolation of from where we are right now and where it's going next. And I want to take you on a little bit of a mind tour of what it is where we are moving towards. And I believe we are moving to a massively digital and physical merged world. The world of tomorrow is not only like watching into your phone, which is our current digital exploration we have, but we actually, oh, nice. Okay, there we go. Ta-da. But we will actually move towards completely digital, virtual, stateful worlds. Virtual reality will play a very big part in the coming future. So people will not only live and work on those spaces, but there will be obviously also sports, which we already have actually. But this will be the sports of the future. And that even goes cross to our physical world, where we will merge physical and digital, like purely digital clothes. Not sure if you have ever heard about that, but digital fashion is actually starting to become a thing. So this is actually wearing digital clothes. That can even be translating then to your avatars and your players, and obviously to your virtual reality space. The next generation, my kids, and when we look around ourselves, they're already digital natives. They grow up with iPhones and iPads. They grow up with computers. For them, this is not something new that happened in the 90s for most people. This is something they experience as babies already in a way. This is a complete different crowd, and that's a very digital crowd. And this new digital world we are moving into, this new paradigm needs different tools. And it actually needs the tools of Web3. Right? This is kind of what we laid the foundation in the last recent year, especially with Ethereum and with the tools that are being built right now. But what we actually need for living and being able to exist in this world, we need universal profiles. Our current internet presence, our current digital presence is completely scattered around different social platforms, very dispersed. You obviously have no control over that. Platforms close, your account is gone. The world that we have right now relies on email and password. It's the worst user experience you can have. But these digital unified profiles are also important for companies and players that want to issue items, that want to interact in a verifiable way in this new digital world. And we obviously need also digital identities for physical items. And that's a new frontier. That's, for example, the direction of use cases that we are initially approaching strongly on the LUKSO network, and where this experiences in the Ethereum network in the NFT space, it is creating digital identities for items. And especially the luxury fashion space has a very big, obviously, need for that, when it comes to counterfeit and secondary markets. But it even goes across this. It goes into community. It goes into influencer artists or game or community tokens of all sorts. And DAOs will play a big role in here as well. So that is the kind of world which we already have built, initial applications, and we are in talks with a lot of the big players, and we are on the LUKSO network not only wanting to create and initiate this decentralized network, but we want to invite even existing players to play and build out this new digital space. And for this network, for this space and for this new purpose, we see LUKSO network as being the space, the creative playground to make this happen. So, when LUKSO? So we have built, in the last year, we have built a test network called L14 after King Louis XIV, the dictator, the king's son, because it's a PoE network, the Sun King. We are actually, very soon will do an ICO in a form of a reversible ICO. That's a concept I have proposed a while back. I will talk in a little bit about this. And we plan to start the network fall this year. And the idea is to actually initially start out with Honey Badger BFT and then move it to a proof of stake DAO, pure proof of stake network. And that kind of, it's about following the development happening in the Ethereum space and seeing where Casper is going and how scalable Casper can be to adopt that as well. At the same time, which I have not put on this slide right now, we are having a lot of partnerships we are working on with fashion brands, with football clubs and other players to kind of play and create this new digital lifestyle space and show what's possible and what can be done. Concerning the reversible ICO, which I call RICO, the idea is the following. Instead of making an ICO, which basically means people give Ether and get tokens back, we have seen what happened in 2017, 2018. A bunch of people FOMO into something. They have no ability to get out. Maybe they scroll down the website later, figured out, oh, that's not what I wanted to buy. Crazy misevaluations happened, because everybody made it tokens for whatever reason. And for that reason, I came up with this concept of the reversible ICO, which is roughly leaned onto the DICO, but it's actually a very simple process. So instead of actually you buying LUKS, the cryptocurrency of the LUKSO network, you are reserving LUKS. And the moment you reserve LUKSO, you're guaranteed to get those, given that you stay in all the time through the end. Let's say it's 8 months. And during that time, you can always basically simply return your reserve tokens and you get your Ether out. And the progress of how you buy is completely linear, as you can see here. So that kind of allows the wisdom of the crowd to play a role in the success of this network, where they can decide at any point in time, okay, I do believe this network is going forward, or I don't believe in this network anymore, or I do want to use my Ether differently. And what this will hopefully end up happening is that we have the investors and the participants in this network that really believe in our vision and that are actually in there because they want to be in there and not because they couldn't get out anymore. And I do also hope, because we are proposing this as a standard framework in a way, that this gets adopted by other projects as well. And that they see, okay, that's the better way of doing a token-based fundraising. Because then we have a lot more security, and we show also to regulators and the whole space that we can make security by design, that we can actually make it through incentives in a way that it works for everybody, and we don't have the crazy rushes anymore from the past years. Yeah, so that's the LUKSO network. The network for the digital lifestyle space, how we see it coming. It's a future that is not presently here, but we have seen the indications everywhere. I mean, not sure if you've heard, Fortnite has made $3 billion profit, as much as Amazon, just in 2018. That just shows what kind of interest already exists in that space. The way of, and that's my belief of what this new blockchain-based digital lifestyle space will allow, is it will distribute not only now information sharing power to everyone, but economical power in the social, digital and social media space. And that will empower creatives, that will empower completely new companies and complete new ways of how communities will interoperate. And it moves us a little bit also out of this DeFi focus, which I somehow initiated, got the ball rolling, but I now want to drift the ball a little bit away into a different direction, because I think that is more impactful and that is bigger. And yeah, that's what we are going to thrive forward in the next year and plus. That's all I have. Thanks. Yeah. If you have questions, there's a microphone. Then, yeah, there's one here.
Just a quick and easy one. On one of the slides you had LIPs, which I believe is LUKSO improvement proposals, and besides it was LSPs. What's LSPs?
Good question. So LIP is obviously LUKSO improvement proposal. That's more around the network, how we had it in Ethereum as well. LSPs, I mean, I kind of used the term ERC back in the day when I created ERC20, Ethereum request for comment. I just thought, it was never meant to be a standard name. It was never meant to be a de facto DIN ISO standard name. So I just changed this now to LUKSO standards proposal, because I think that makes it a bit more clear. Not the request for comment thing.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering, how do you plan to govern the network? So you mentioned there DAO, stake, proof of stake, and so on. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and how you manage development of everything that's happening on the network?
So, so the network itself will be starting out with Honeybadger BFT, which is a BFT consensus, using a proof of stake DAO smart contract system. And that's, on the end, the governance is simply people can become validators or block producers by putting a stake, and then others can delegate a stake to them. So it's a delegated proof of stake in simple terms. It's not as decentralized, obviously, as I wish to have it, but it's already working and it's scalable enough, or it's even more scalable than current Ethereum network. The idea really is of how to incentivize the community long term is that the distribution of the native token, I have no chart here right now, but the distribution is actually planned out to be more in alignment with future groups joining the network. So in the reversible ICO, for example, we sell 20% of the network. We as founders have 3% of the network. We have a private sale, which is another 10%. So that's kind of like in total, you have like here 35%. And then we have bigger chunks that we planned out for example, bigger companies coming into the space wanting to use the network. They don't buy the token to dump it onto investors. They buy it to use it because they have businesses to run. You know, they're not investing really in these things at all. And then we have planned around 20% that will be governed by the community, where there will be one part in a DAO and the other in a traditional fund, which then the community can decide where this goes. And if we see the network being decentralized enough and well working over time, we just might decide to really just burn all of the rest. But most of the networks we had initially, first, I mean, in previous networks we have seen founders got huge stakes, which makes very little sense. But also, they just distributed the cake early on, thought, oh, we're fine, we collected now money, but then everybody who comes later needs to buy on the market, driving the prices unnecessarily high, creating these kind of huge fluctuations. And we want to make it in such a way that there's something for multiple stages of the network over many, many years, and have a bit more control of the initial distribution. But the governance is staking initially. I mean, there's a lot of research, and a lot of experimentation going in the space of how these networks can be more governed in detail, but right now we don't have the perfect solution. So if that perfect solution comes early on, we're still able to somehow push the network in the right direction, then yeah, we might actually do that as well.
Okay, thank you. I would like to ask you two questions. The first question is about security. We know that blockchain is really secure, but in your case, what kind of security you make it? And the second question is actually how many partners, how many clients you have in your project?
So to security, I mean, it's delegated proof of stake, so this is not as decentralized as a proof of work network. The focus of this network is not how we wrote it on the Ethereum website back in the day, build unstoppable applications. The purpose of this network is a more loose kind of use cases. Especially initially, it's more about reputation, it's more about community. So the attack vectors or the interest to attack those kind of networks, especially when there's there's not much to gain from that, except destroying reputation. So it doesn't need to have the same high level of security. But obviously, the more people stake, the more secure the network will get. And we do want to move into Casper and evolve with the Ethereum evolution, right? So the way of how I see this, that there are many Ethereum-like networks for different purpose with a bit different consensus algorithms that are also interbridged, that are interconnected. When it comes to partnerships, I mean, we can't announce many of them yet. It's also not directly a partnership with the network, because the network is the LUKSO Blockchain Foundation as an independent entity. But we are talking, or we have actually a partnership with a very large soccer club from Germany, Premier League. And we are in talks with the biggest fashion houses. And we have a lot of creative people coming to us who want to build in this space. And currently, if you're one of these creative peoples, most of the time you're the outlier on Ethereum. If you look at YouTube music back in the day, they didn't get traction because it was not really the right crowd. And we hope that the moment this network goes live, these people will come out of the closet to kind of like really appear and feel more directed to. That's it. Thank you so much, then, everybody.